Yama, g'day everybody. I'm here with Carl, and hopefully soon I'll be here with Nese. Yama, g'day Donnie. How you going? Can you hear me okay? Am I coming through loud and clear? Yep. You can come in if you want, Donnie. We're going to have a spiritual talk. We're going to talk about a few things that affect us. Being here in this world at the time we are, and we're all here for different reasons, but we're all here together. Some people are here to actively take part in what's happening in the world. Some of us are here to silently take a back step part in what's happening in this world on another level. Hopefully many that are listening take part in that other level, because things are a little different there. And when someone comes and joins me, we'll discuss it more. For now, I'm just going to rave on a bit. We face many things in life, just on an individual level: love, work, family, kids, relationships, all sorts of things like that. And that's hard in itself. Just living in the world on a social way, and the laws they place on us, and the things we're supposed to live up to, and how we should live, the standards we're supposed to live at. And if you can't live at that standard, they look at you less. And for those that live in that standard, they probably feel lonely because no one talks to them. I don't know, I'm not in that top echelon, but we're all still here together. This was Nese's idea, by the way, and I'm here by myself. But I got Donnie here. I'm sorry that you're on sorry business, my brother. I will call you later on, tomorrow probably in the morning. But we're here on this beautiful earth. Like, you can't deny it's a beautiful place, right? You look around, the trees, the mountains, the sky. It is a beautiful place that we live on. I really wish we took care of it better, but we've got swept away in silly things, like the way we think we're supposed to live. Who said we're supposed to live like that? Who said we're supposed to take things from nature and exhaust it so we can live better? I don't want to live like that. I'd rather live on a nice even keel where there's some for nature, some for me, and some for whatever comes before and after, and make it nice and even in harmony. And it makes for longevity. And I'm just going to still rave on until someone joins me. So here we left. Spiritual beings. We're spiritual beings. That's what makes us different from other beings. We're deeply spiritual, whether you know it or not. There's that thing inside you that you may or may not listen to, but it's there, and that's what makes us different. Because when it's left to grow naturally without all the stress and the hardship of life, we're actually really bright and shiny and very capable beings. But here we are today, and the world's gone wombo, as we would say in my mob, crazy. And a lot of people don't know how to handle it. There's different things happening on different levels. And if you're spiritual and you didn't know it, or all of a sudden you've woke up, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks, because you're all of a sudden going to become aware of everything around you. If you look at the screen right now, they look like little castle tops. They got washed away. Anyway, yeah, you'll be feeling all sorts of things, especially the fear coming from the masses, because they want to generate fear. And Nese's timing's impeccable. Hello, my brother.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
5:07 a.m. One notification.
My daughter's iPad somehow locked on me, so I'm hoping my devices aren't going to overheat.
Messages. 2 minutes ago. Father, since.
That's
Shores a
all right.
message. What is your password to your iPad and why are you awake still? Button.
I was just talking to myself and my brother Donnie's who's in the chat room. And just talking about the world and that we're all in it together, and what makes us different is that we're highly spiritual beings, and that left naturally we would be very capable beings if we didn't have the stresses of life. And a lot of people have woken up recently. They'd be really confused because all of a sudden they'd be feeling the masses and the fear and all that, and then I got to there and then you turned up.
Good. Well, I apologize for not being here more punctual.
That's okay. They got to hear me rave on by myself for a little while, which is rare kind of, because I'm usually got someone with me. But that's okay. And my brother Donnie always turns up out of the blue. Yeah, some extra energy there for you, my brother. Extra love your way. So, okay. So back to the world and where we're at, and let's assist these people a little bit, eh?
Well, where we're at would absolutely depend on the individual and the perspective of that precious moment, or some call it the now. And in my experience within existence, that the full spectrum is there, positive, neutral, and negative. However, seemingly, I hypothesize that the powers that should not be are continuing to direct us to be more in a state of negativity than positivity. Because if we would get into the semantics, negativity could be fear and positivity could be love. And do you remember that one Pixar movie, Monsters Inc.?
Mm-hmm. Where they
They were feeding off fear, and then they realized they could feed off love.
Yes. Hey, Carl.
Hey, brother, how are you? Hey, Donnie.
Fantastic. Even more joyous now that you're here with us also. But you're absolutely correct. In the movie, in a nutshell, the monster world was utilizing fear as a power source. And in the end, they found out and realized that love would even exponentially increase the power. And that was a little bit of why all of a sudden I gave my sister Luna a jingle this morning, my morning, because it's really early for me, and evening for down under. And we were talking about the situation that we find ourselves in, where seemingly because of a calendar date, there tends to be this huge focus on the negativity, on the fear right now. And this is detrimental, or a opportunity for those that should not be in power to gain more of that power if they can create the situation where we get caught up in the fear. And so that was a little bit of our goal of, let's try to share some words of wisdom or knowledge or data so that it may possibly assist some of these individuals that are finding themselves in this negative state of being. And I'm going to pack a bowl. I'm going to smoke my pipe while we're live streaming today.
I love it when you talk like that.
Well, I enjoy it that you can understand the language of my ancestors.
It's a little slow, brother, but I'm getting there.
Actually, while we're talking about talking, that's a place we can start. Because we all know that when we speak, their vibration comes out, the tone of our word, coupled with the feeling that we have with it. And we've been tricked into speaking words that can actually be detrimental to our well-being. And they're as simple as good morning. I prefer to say welcome to the day because I don't want to be in mourning. I want to be happy. I want to, we have times of mourning, we live them. It's hard enough as it is without the whole world being in mourning every 24 hours, if you know what, understand what I'm saying. And that's just the beginning of what we say. When we talk to each other, sometimes if we're angry and some of the words we say, it sours the water in our body. And to stave off the fear, you can do 100 little things like just saying, thank you, love, thank you, love, thank you, love, thank you, love, thank you, love. Saying that a few times, you change the energy in your body, in the waters in your body, which changes your vibration, which in turn, if you're near someone, will leach onto them and they'll make them happy. And I feel we have to think more about these things than more about what you see on your TV or on your radio. That generates the opposite.
Well, I tend to share my experience and perspective through those experiences. And as a Paleo American of the Anishinaabe people, I have found what most of the time works for me. And in the situation that I am, because I am blind, I am so dependent on words. And so I joke about making a t-shirt that says, I prescribe to the Webster Dictionary, because words have transformed so much to where their meanings are being argued. And so we individually are going to find a challenge that when we utilize a word, the individual that we're having a conversation with may not take that word as we intend it to be. And I would really like to feel and believe and think that for the most part, people are trying to be positive, but that's not always easy. It's not easy to stay 100% positive, so there's so many factors when it comes to communications. And if we get caught up in this fear or negativity or darkness, then we're going to start intaking other people's words negatively, even though they may not be sending those words negatively. Like you were saying, if the word morning gives you a negative connotation, then it's going to have that negative effect on you.
I can I add a bit into this?
No, not at all. And I mean no as in KNOW.
No, we only invited because you look good.
No, we need someone good looking on the stream.
Look, from my perspective, I've always found this has always been the educational problem in our system at the moment. And rather than looking at it as it's a bad thing, I think it's a work in progress. We haven't lived in this kind of environment where we know everybody from all over the world or can actually connect with anybody all over the world. And we're all just starting to get to know each other. And it's like a big bunch of rivers that have just come and collided together. There's going to be turbulence at first until we form a direction. And I think the spiritual people of the world actually hold the key to this, because where they put their focus, where they offer their energy, is what's going to be created next, because they're the few people left on the world that are actually still in control of themselves. Because I think everyone else has been taught to allow other people to control their feelings instead of having control themselves.
Agree. But then I've experienced that where some people will give me that control or give me that power. I like to proclaim a cliche, I think it's my original, but it's don't put me on a pedestal. I won't survive the fall. And because of that in itself, there's times where I will not be the most prim and proper individual, and I may not use the Queen's English because I want to ruffle some feathers a little bit to be like, hey, I'm just who I am.
Yeah.
I'm nothing greater than you.
Isn't that the point though? Taking back control and being yourself instead of allowing yourself to be what everyone else wants you to be.
Be who crowd made you to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the minute you take back control of your feelings, you're in your own center. You can actually choose what you want to feel, and then you can empower that. And if you keep yourself settled, I've found the world just settles around you. I've seen many situations where I've seen violence and anger and people out of control, ready to go to war with each other, and I've walked just in the middle of it, kept myself settled and not allowed myself to get involved in the fire that they're already burning inside them. And somehow it's just put the fire out. It's settled their energy because I'm the only one in the space that's still in control. Everyone else is out of control. And what's the law state, mate? If you stay in control, they have no right to take control of you. But at the minute you get out of control, they have every right to take control of you.
Well, true, because the only thing you can actually control is yourself.
Absolutely.
Everything beyond that is out of your control, right? You can't. And to think that you can control what's beyond you, you can have a go. I want to watch it.
And you can give your feelings to other people for them to look after. Like, I'm going to give all my love to you, brother. But what happens if you don't give all your love back? I'm left empty.
Well, that is.
And that's the education problem.
Where are you getting your love from? That's what I'd be asking.
We're supposed to center it like the sun and let it shine in all directions equally, feeding your whole world, including yourself.
Yeah, it should be an endless well.
And I think that's where we've all got lost, because even the spiritual people that I talk to, they're all going through this head stuff. And I keep saying, you're letting too many other people influence your feelings. Look how many people you're thinking about. And remember your language. It's called spelling for a reason, because the words you use are literally creating magic with the vibration that they create coming out your mouth.
Well, from our birth, we realize the worth of gaining power and control, where that newborn infant will cry, and as it cries, for whatever reason, it will start realizing that in the pattern recognition, that if I cry like this, then I know that mommy's going to come running. If I cry long enough, I know that mommy's going to give me more energy. So we start learning those modalities of getting energy. And yes, assuming we all believe that, when an infant cries, it's usually hurt, hungry, or tired, from my experience.
Am I getting attention yet?
Right. And then we find out as we grow up that, hey, more likely I can get mommy's attention, especially all the good, positive attention. And if I can't get that good, positive attention from daddy, then maybe I'll do something negative, because it may not be the absolute attention I wanted, but it will be attention. And we get caught up in those social conditionings from our surroundings that I do believe at a point we don't realize how we turn into like energy vampires from learning those modalities from our birth.
True.
But I would say also that's the difference between a young soul and an older soul. Someone who's been human many, many times probably has developed a better moral compass and understanding of the energy flows of things and generally gets it from the source. The younger souls are still closer to the nature they were in before they become human, so they still get it from each other.
Yes. And is it that difference between, being immature and finding maturity to where we recognize our shortcomings and we do something to change them?
Oh, absolutely. But again, that comes down to the age of the soul. Some of us have that capacity to have self awareness. And I've seen people do some crazy things and they'll literally deny you black and blue that they've just done it or even said it that way because their self awareness isn't there. But again, young souls, I can remember a time a long time ago when I wasn't much different, thought I knew everything and wasn't listening to anybody.
When was that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's changed?
And I think generally from what I've seen across the world, there are a lot of good people. I remember talking to people that are in some pretty major institutions and they were in their 30s when I spoke to them and they were all ready to leave. They were from different parts of the world. And I said to them, look, the people that you're working for are only got about another 10 or 15 years in that role. It won't be long before you guys step up into it. And I said, and the difference between the young and the old in this frame is the old can't agree on anything, whereas the young are always partying together and talking about everything and agreeing on just about everything. So they will end up repairing this. And that's where the worry in the future isn't there, because when the older ones disappear, and I always call them dinosaurs, they're already extinct, they just don't know it yet. And then the younger ones take over and, well, they've got a better perspective. They've grown up with a world view rather than a narrow one. And I think they'll do a better job than we did through a better awareness. It's just going to be a bit turbulent on the way through because the old don't want to let go yet.
I've made a joke with my daughter, who's 19 now, and I've asked her many times, why have you not organized all the individuals your age and just kill everybody over 30?
Solve the problem.
I think that'll happen naturally, brother. We don't need to be so extreme.
Well, I mean, of course, it's an absolute joke because
Yeah.
I'm almost 30 myself, but
Yeah.
but it makes me think of that old movie Logan's Run.
Mm-hmm.
When, I don't know if you remember, but for the listeners, that they had these little gems in the palm of your hand, and once you got to 30, your gem would turn a certain color, and then you had to report to Carousel. And then when you went to Carousel, it was this weird dome where the people in the center of the dome started floating up to the top of the dome, and then they would disintegrate.
Yeah.
And if you didn't show up to Carousel, people would try to escape, and they became runners. And so then they had like a police force that would go and gather people to put them in Carousel. And
These are the areas that always sort of trouble me a little, because when you consider that we have multiple possible destinations or ways of getting to the same destination, probably a better way of saying it, it's going to be governed by what we actually give our thoughts and feelings to. See, most of us that are spiritually minded, we connect with people in different countries, pretty much circling the globe or across the flat world, depending on which way you see it. And I think those people there are the ones that actually hold the future in their hands. They're just not aware of it yet. And once they wake up to it, you'll see change across the board pretty quickly. They've just got to shift their vision to something that's better than what they've been looking at or what they're being fed.
well, there is the $1 trillion question. What moment could possibly occur in order to make such a shift in that energy, because when I go back to the positive, neutral, and negative, we can't have just one of those three states of being. We need all of them to work in consort of themselves.
Balance.
Exactly.
But I think, look, when you consider some of the spiritual people that you've probably even connected with yourself, and they say that growing faster than what we did, have far more resources available to them. I think consciousness is eventually just going to reach a pinnacle point. These people will start realizing that their feelings and their magnetic energy or their attractiveness in the world is being influenced by things outside them. They take back control, and the minute they do, they're the very few that are left in control in the world, and they have far more power because of the kind of energy they generate. I think it's an automatic function. I think the other side of it has always been trying to figure out how to stop it, but it's impossible. It's inevitable.
Well, the challenge I find myself in is every time I get spiritual people near me, I pull out my little Ghostbusters absorbing box and I trap the spirit in those boxes until I can make a denotation of positive, neutral, or negative spirit.
Yeah. I think you can tell by how they leave you at the end of it. I think if you're unsettled, then you know that they've probably done something they shouldn't. But if you leave settled and you're feeling a lot better inside, then you know that whatever you've exchanged has brought peace and ease rather than more dis-ease.
Absolutely. But have you ever accounted or encountered a entity, I guess, for lack of a better term, a spirit of neutrality more than a negative perspective or a positive perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they exist all over the place, even in animals and birds.
Yeah,
And non-physical as well, if that's what the question was about.
yeah. Those are the ones that I ponder the most about, that are possibly not understanding our 3D, for lack of a better term, our 3D existence within the choice of materialism, the physical realm, of positive and neutral. And then when they witness a direction of that energy, positive or neutral, then they tend to move towards, well, now as I start sharing it with the audience and you, it's like, okay, these are those things where people just say, Nese, how much have you been smoking? Because
Smoke some more, make some sense.
yes, when we don't worry about making dollars, we start to make sense.
Yes,
But
exactly.
back again, we're talking about energies, and we are, like Luna was saying earlier, we are spiritual entities. I would even go further from my teaching. We talk about dividing the individual into like four parts, where it's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And each of those parts are like a spoke on a wheel. And if they are all in balance, then the wheel can roll in a positive way. And if it's not in balance, then we do have that dis-ease where we don't get that smooth rolling.
No, we create friction instead.
Hey, I mean, tell you created friction, Carl.
But spiritually, people, I think, talking about it, understanding each other's points of view, and then accepting the differences is what we should be doing. Because there's nothing wrong with us looking at the same thing from different angles, because eventually we'll get to a point where we all see the same thing.
Well, when we can drop our id or ego to change the perspective of viewing, because that is critical.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think whenever I've looked at that word ego, I've always looked at that as my lower self. You know, the physical, the part that's a part of the earth, and the 3D world, as you put it earlier. But the higher self, I believe, is the part that we should be listening to, because it's taller than us and it has a higher point of view and it has our best interests at heart. Generally generates light from most of us. Some of us are still a little dim in this area because we're young. But for the ones that are bright in the world, those are the ones that are probably the struggling the most at the moment, because they're doubting too much, questioning too much, rather than just settling themselves, centering their energy, and knowing that in doing that, they're taking back control of the world and the way it turns around them. Most other people in their lives aren't doing that, so their energy will influence the world around them, but not in a controlling way, just in a settling way.
Yep, and interesting enough, when we do that critical thinking and that self assessment of what are we utilizing within our own existence to keep us down or raise us up, i.e., foods, additives, preservatives, pesticides, herbicides, they have a absolute electromagnetic occurrence when we ingest them into our sphere, into our existence.
Yeah, you know, people, some people can function, well, they function all right, not eating right, but they'd function better if they did. And me, myself, I see a big difference. If I eat the right stuff and I do right, everything about me is on point. When I eat crappy stuff or drink, well, I'll rephrase that, when I eat food that's not good for me and I drink things that aren't good for me, it puts me out of sync with myself. And just that alone makes me strive to eat better, drink better. Let alone the air and that I'm breathing. I try to ignore that, actually, gentlemen. I sat there one day and it wasn't fear that overwhelmed me, it was like hopelessness. But I realised that fear has many faces. It has um, hopelessness and sadness and that kind of stuff. It's got them faces as well. But I was struck with hopelessness when I thought the water that I'm washing with has poison in it. The air I'm breathing has poison in it. I can't get top quality of this. It's got something changed about it. And, I got to the point where it was like, man, I can't see anything positive. So I just had to, I know it's there. I'm aware of it. I combat it by doing what I can, by using as much natural stuff as I can. But I ignore the fact that it can overwhelm you and make you feel hopeless. I just chuck that away and went, just go back in your box and sit where you belong, because I don't function with that up front and it's not important. I realised what was important was that I function properly on the best level that I can, so my spirit can deliver what it came here to deliver, not what my little person in me wants. The little person in us wants to eat crappy food, go out and listen, run amok in society and drink alcohol and just generally have a good time with no care. We all have that in us, but we realise as you come up inside yourself and grow up, that there's more important and better things that fulfill you more.
Well, that's when I make the choice to believe that in my existence, as I do ingest negativity, pesticides, herbicides, sugar, additives,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. When I ingest that, I like to believe that in a microcosmic action in the quantum realm, that my belief system or structure is literally manipulating the microscopic of that negativity and at least minimally neutralizing it. Although it is not 100%, and I do absolutely believe that we all have that potential of where, just like you were talking earlier about Dr. Moto and the ice crystals, where he showed it, bringing it up again, where, he would take words and music and vibration and direct it at water, and then he would freeze it. And then he took thousands and thousands of pictures, and then he took the extreme of his point and utilized it. And the intricate, beautiful patterns that some of these positive directions of water occurred was incredible. Just as on the opposite spectrum, where they showed all this negative intent on the water, you had these horrific examples of the crystalline structure not achieving that brilliance. And so, in that same principle, where we get into that intentions, directing, focusing our energy, we could manipulate the microcosm. And this is where we get into that split photon demonstration that's been argued, where they've scientifically shown that through the observation of directing photons through slits A and B, there were occurrences of where the photons seemed to be going through both slits at the same time. And so it is most beneficial if we can maintain the positivity in that directing or intending the outcome as we move from one present moment to the other one. But again, the question is, how do we achieve that? Because staying 100% one way or another is extremely difficult, if not almost impossible.
No, I think you're better off just to stay in the middle, brother.
You balance. In this realm that we live in and the way, in the conditions we live in, it is impossible to be 100%. You can go up and down and stay at, bounce around the middle and go up. And sometimes we slip a little under, but go back to the middle.
But isn't that taking us back to what's in control of us or something outside us? Are we still allowing other things to form negative points of view and forming walls and discrimination? One of the things I learned about my own immune system was that it was guided by my discriminative thoughts. So if I thought something was bad, it would attack it. And that's literally how it was functioning. In the first part of my life, it was functioning without so much of a conscious thought, but an unconscious thought. Once I become more aware of it, I realized that you could actually control it by letting it know that you're one with everything. And literally, we are. I don't know whether people have ever heard about Reiki. It's a kind of a healing practice where people use light running through their body out through their hands, and this light can transform negative experiences and even physical occurrences within the body. So I figure that if you're like the sun in your own life and you've centered your love, that light will actually get out past your skin. And once it starts getting out past your skin, it works much like the sun does. So if I threw a boulder at the sun, basically it would either be reflected away or transformed before it got there. So I figure the light in us works very much the same way. It's just we've not been taught this. We were told we were born of sin. I just believe we were born of suffering because we were born in the dark. No one told us anything or even helped us to wake up to anything. We've had to find it on our own. And believe it or not, the older souls are doing the best at that because they're all self-awakening. They're waking themselves up through whatever tools they've got available to them at the time. They're moving forward. Sometimes they're feeling a bit alone about it. They're doing all sorts of self-checking and going through themselves like a fine-tooth comb, thinking there's still stuff wrong with them. And really, at the end of the day, the secret was just to be all right with yourself the way you are. Set it all free. Because the minute you set it free, things stop creating friction and start moving around in a much more pleasant manner. It's like it doesn't matter which pathway you choose, whether you choose religion or a soul pathway.
What happens if you're an arsehole and you go, I'm happy being an arsehole, it's okay the way I am?
Well, some people are actually okay with being an arsehole, mate. That's a fact.
That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't mean, though, that you'll be attracted to them the minute you take back control.
No, they'll repel you, probably.
Well, they'll be repelled by you, right?
It's just that I have to check.
Because the secret is literally taking back that control so that people aren't able to influence your feelings through their actions or their words as best you can. And don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely not perfect at this. It's a work in progress, but it's stuff that gets shared to me through the spirit realms about how to center my energy because of the kind of work that I do, so that I don't get too pulled one way or the other with stuff other people are going through.
But you've got to remember, we did suffer amnesia because they whacked us in the head to try and get us to forget all this. And some of us woke up and didn't forget, but we still had a bit of a headache.
Well, those spiritual people that I find challenges with in their waking up are the ones that continue to hit the snooze button. And as far as the assholes go, I can appreciate them, especially when they create the excrement from a perspective is called fertilizer.
Yeah.
And so thank goodness for the anal sphincters producing the positive fertilizer to allow the continuation of growth. Shout out goes to the worms.
See, how you choose to receive, brother, is up to us.
I saved a worm the other day. I was very proud of myself. But everyone has a purpose. That's how you can love people unconditionally. You just got to understand that they have a purpose. Hopefully they're serving their purpose by being who they were created meant them to be. And like you said, the worms serve a purpose. The sharks, the bottom feeder sharks and the bottom feeders in the ocean serve a purpose. The birds in the sky, everything, you serve a purpose.
Yeah, I do. Over the dolphin, I definitely pick the purpose.
The purpose, yeah, I'll get it. I'll pay that one.
As long as he's got a bottle nose.
And doesn't get you in a bottleneck when they're driving. Well, I mean, if we go in full agreement that everything has a purpose, I am still going to be on the fence about what is it when it comes to blood-sucking leeches or mosquitoes.
Oh, look.
Or even wood ticks. Yeah, what are their purpose?
Well, I looked at a leech one day and realised, they are really beautiful. The leeches we have here are like a royal blue and gold. They've got a stripe down the side of them, which is like this blue, and then inside the blue stripe is a gold stripe. They are actually very beautiful, even though they suck your blood. And if they get on you, there's only a couple of ways you can get rid of it. And we've got ticks, which do the same thing. I don't really like them, but I can't say they're beautiful because they actually look like little monsters. But everything's got a right to survive, I think.
I'll agree there. And if you look historically, there was benefits of leeching when it came to ancient medicines.
Yeah. Leaching out the poisons. Hey, maybe we need to leech today to get them poisons out from what they're spraying in the sky.
Yeah, if we could wouldn't it be awesome if we could create a leech that would suck out negative energy from you?
Oh, yeah. I reckon.
Doesn't that what the leech do? It takes out the bad blood?
Yeah, it does. It takes out the bad blood.
Right. Agree. So maybe we need to start manifesting negative leeches.
Maybe if we asked a negative energy nicely, would it just suck out the negative stuff because it's negative anyway? Yeah. We'd be doing it, Maybe that's what's happening though. If we they're trying to get us in negative energy to pump it out of us. And we're cooperating.
Just got to stop feeding that shit, man.
That's
and it'll
right.
Stop growing.
We're actually cooperating with them and getting them all revved up and feeding them. So if you don't want them around, stop feeding them.
or you know, or the choice of being like, okay, please take my negativity. Go ahead, you can have it. I choose to relinquish all my negativity. You can have it. You know, I'm going to stay in neutrality or in positivity. So every now and then, come around, take my negativity, and go do what you're going to do.
It sounds good to me. But it's got to come from somewhere, you know. And I've watched it. I see chaos, like I see energies as in different ways. They actually, I can see them. And I watch before chaos hits. I watch this, an entity or a being come in, an energy. I will just say an energy, right? Because it's all the same thing, like same as us. We're beings, we're energy, we're entities. This energy come in, and it jumps on someone and makes them act in a certain way, and they project energy outward, and it affects the other people in the room, and then it jumps to another one to make another one person do it, and then all of a sudden this energy speeding up and it starts to move around in like a swirl, right? And before you know it, if you don't knock it on the head right then when you see it in the room, before you know it, all hell's broken loose in the room, and chaos is set in, and it's fed, and then fear comes, and all this other stuff comes in to feed off that energy that you start to generate, because this one energy has jumped in and do it. Now, because I see it as a singular, separate energy come in and then affect people, it's obvious to say that they exist and they float around, right? Whatever you want to put terms on, whatever they are. So it's up to us to be, this is what I think, and educate me otherwise. I feel it's up to us spiritually to thicken our skin and detect these things, like when they come, and bump them on the head like I do. Like if I see them in the room and it comes in, I'll try to get either kick it out or extinguish it before it comes in and does run amok and create chaos. In the world, I feel there's bigger ways of that, like there's bigger entities that run amok, and like they hang around war and stuff like that, the same kind of chaos but on a bigger version. So I feel like we're dealing with a separate energy here.
One of my most incredible occurrences that I've witnessed of that fine line between chaos and order was while I was in the military on a ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And we were right literally on the edge of a major storm where you could literally see the line of water where it was all calm to the left of us, and then to the right of us it was raining, and it exponentially increased from just seeing the rain on the calm water to where the waves just kept intensifying and into chaos of the storm. And I've always utilized, well, not always, again, no absolute, but I've found myself many times when I think of this whole incredible dance between order and chaos, I remember that riding the edge of the storm in the Navy, and that's like you were just talking about, in the microcosm and the macrocosm, as above, so below. When you see those masons with their gestures, where they have one hand with their finger pointing up and the other hand with their finger pointing down, this is that iconography, that symbolism, that in the microcosm so occurs in the macrocosm. And these for definition, these entities that work within those realms, whether it be order, neutrality, or chaos. And another example is, say you have a group of 100 people, and bringing back the assholes again. So in a group of 100 people, you're bound to get a few assholes. And somehow they tend to find each other. And then when they find each other, they play the one-up game of not only enabling each other to be assholes, but they encourage them to step it up a notch.
But wouldn't you say they're only seeking energy from other people via attention?
Well, the full spectrum, that would definitely be, an easy assuming find, is that they're doing it for the intention. But then, there's a full spectrum of what's going on inside those entities, of why they seemingly create, that negativity. Because we could go to the realm of, what the church talks about possession. My ancestors, we call it walk-ins, and sometimes it's really nice because we tend to find a reason, an excuse, a justification for disassociation identity crisis by saying, oh, the devil made me do it, Mercury's in retrograde, mommy didn't hug me enough, daddy beat me too much, my underwear are too tight, or I stubbed my toe this morning.
So how would a person know? Well, so we presume that you'd know, but how would a person know the difference between them being a child, let's say, and something outside sucking the life out of them and making them act like that?
Well, that's where it's really interesting in the discernment of these individuals that are gifted with different modalities of detention. Um, you know, uh, like in the Catholic Church, they have their exorcist. We have, for lack of a better term that I'm not a big fan of, the term medicine man.
Yeah.
You know, and and there's individuals that have a better grasp or a better talent, or they just develop their talent because it's like a muscle.
Yep.
It's like anything else. It's like if you're an okay drawer, if you continue to draw, then you can become a better drawer. Just like if you play football or violin or the piano or cooking or whatever, you can increase or the betterment of your skill, your modality. So if you, the listening audience, if you suspected that there are outside forces that are manipulating you, then I would reach out, and attempt to find these individuals that are, professionals, trained, or know of these things. However, on the other perspective, it is really nice when we can utilize the fact of there's possessions and walk-ins to justify what we're doing, because you have that spectrum of it where people will proclaim the devil made me do it, and now they have an out of why they did what they did.
Yeah, I've had experience, not that bad. They didn't do anything bad. It was just the use of services under the guise that there's something bad in my house. And they got, the service was me free. The government department that they were with paid for it, and I turn up to check out if there is something in their house or something annoying them and interrupting their life. And when I got there, I listened to the lady. I looked around. Nothing didn't look like anything was happening. She told me this big long spiel, and I asked her a simple question, and basically the answer was she just got me there for the heck of it because she could, because I was free. And I just said, well, I'm leaving. See ya. There was nothing happening. It was just attention. Like, I suppose that's where we can put her in that category. She needed the attention, and it was free. There was nothing really there that spiritually that I saw that was dark in the house or anything that laid upon that person, not upon anything else. And I find that harder. I'd rather go to someone's house or rather meet a person that's having a spiritual problem with either a spirit or spiritual growth than have a person just be awkward and suck people's energy or like to muck people around or, just being a dickhead person. That upsets me more than anything.
Yeah, it's hard enough to deal with the physical realm of individuals or entities that are wanting or needing or just being negative to then also have to experience the realm of the phenomenon or the supernatural or the weird of these feasible entities that exist on these planes so close to our physical realm. Whether people call it like 4D, 5D, 6D, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11D.
Yeah. It's all about understanding. I was going to say education, but I heard the real meaning of what education actually means. I don't like that word anymore.
Can I share a different point of view?
Absolutely.
Have you ever heard the term, you can't change the nature of the beast?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, some of the stuff that I've been shown over the years, if you can just bear with me for a minute, I truly believe that pretty much most human beings came from other things on the planet before they became human. So most of us came from different animals, which is why different mobs have different animals at the top of their family tree, whether it be a totem or a crest. And I believe some of that animal is within our blood, and quite literally it has part of our nature as well. Some of us we can consider would mate once for life, so we'd be more on that level of animal. Some animals are like herd animals. Quite literally, they'll change partners frequently through their life. They like to strut around, hang around the watering holes, show everybody their horns. Sorry, right? I was talking about those pics that men shouldn't send women, right? But and then around the watering hole as well, you get the predator. We call them players in today's world because they're just looking for a meal. When you look at the person who you might consider to be an arsehole and you look at the animal nature that's driving him, you get a better perspective for why he behaves that way once you understand his animal nature, because he's probably closer to that than he is his human divine nature because he's still a younger soul. But how much we empower him is governed by how much attention we give him. If he doesn't get any energy, he'll go somewhere else and try and feed there instead. After a while, they won't find any food sources from that kind of behavior, so they will grow. It's just we don't educate enough about this stuff on how to center your energy and not allow other people to influence us by their behavior or by their words. And sure, there's going to be instances where people say, what happens if someone pulls a gun out or tries to stab you or hits you or something like that? Honestly, at the end of the day, I'd say defend yourself.
Well,
Learn how to do that so that you can defend yourself in calm rather than
exactly,
in fear.
because I've been in them situations.
Because honestly, at the end of the day, the more you're able to stay in control of your own feelings and stop giving other people control of them, the more the world turns around you in accordance to the way you think and feel, as above, so below. Because as you think, every thought that you create has a vibration to it. That vibration then creates a feeling. That feeling alters the muscles within your body, which then alters the magnetic energy coming off your body, changing your attractiveness and what you are pulling into your life. So I've always found that the best way through these things is to put teachers in your life that you can count on. Like my teacher is the sun. The sun is the most attractive thing around me at the moment. He's so attractive that whole planets revolve around. So being the sun in my own life is better than being a satellite to someone else's.
Well, thanks, babe. If you think the sun's more attractive than me.
But it also teaches us to centre that love in our heart and love everything equally, not discriminate here. Why should I discriminate in my love? Why should I only just love one person when I should be loving everything equally? Because I think that's when our suffering starts, because the minute we put blinkers or blockers on what we're allowed to love, we start to go into separational thinking, and that's when we start ending up in that duality thought programming and all that stuff that we shouldn't even be giving our energy to.
Programming is a word because it has been programmed into us.
Well, I think it's a development that's come just through living in early societies and people wanting to control other people, so they just started controlling the information and who could say what and who could say this. History's got it painted up everywhere, and even the word history itself has got an imbalance in it, because where's her story? Because the minute we start integrating both sides of it again, the balance, we find we start to understand. Like even what's underneath your feet, most people don't know or understand that's the Earth Mother. And everybody's forgotten the atmosphere is the Father. We know it's Dad because of when it rains. That is the Father's love going down into the womb of the Earth Mother, germinating her seeds. And her love is the moisture that comes up from the ground into the sky to form the clouds and creates a circle. Whenever you see a man and woman or a mating pair facing each other, you can actually see that energy circling through their bodies with one another, but we don't honour it because we don't educate it anymore. We think we should be the same. We get told as men, you shouldn't be like this, you should be like that. And we tell women the same thing, whereas we can't be. We're men.
Oh, you should wear pants.
It's about learning to
stop wearing dresses now.
And understand the differences and try and honour the circle, and find people that are compatible by understanding their animal nature, that beast inside them. Because some animals can actually function quite well and circle quite well together. Other animals are mortal enemies in the wild, so they'll be at each other their whole life. But we've forgotten to say, where are you from? What's your family name? What's your family totem? For us to understand we're talking. Like I remember someone in this country, in Australia, saying certain soils in this country don't mix with other soils, so they would never breed together. They had that common understanding. Now, I'm not going into too much detail there because it's not my culture.
No, I'll explain it. And I think other people, if they've listened to me before, you'll understand that when we say what totems we are, it lets the other person know all about us. And I'm a goanna snake, water lily woman, and they'll know all about me then, what I am, what I do, where my position is in society, the whole lot. Unfortunately, I haven't got the last bit because you should have another name because it's skin, soil, and animal. I haven't got that yet. But that's how we identify ourselves. In other cultures, in your culture even, they say, like even the painting on your body would tell you who you were, the piercings on your body maybe, the way you wore your hair or didn't wear your hair, and the name of your people and your name.
And whether you had 6 fingers or not.
Yeah, and 6 toes, or how many rows of teeth you had. Even because in our mob, some of the mobs painted up with red ochre all over, so they were like red skin, right? And we knew as soon as we could see that skin, we knew that was their mob because they all painted themselves up ochre like that. Identification. Today's identification, I think, is more on a personal level, and they wear things they don't even know what it means.
Well, we're all strangers to each other because even my neighbour's got a different culture to me.
Yeah, I know.
In the tribal days, it was easy. Everybody grew up with the same habits, had the same animal nature, made breeding and mating very easily.
Yeah, you fellas come here and mucked it all up. We had it all perfect, man. Thousands of years. We had it perfect. No interbreeding, no nothing. We had it down pat, and you come and try to tell us there was a better way.
You mentioned earlier, is there a purpose behind all this? Like, it's something I asked a long while ago, and the idea took me many, many years to get my head around because the answer was a lot larger than I could have handled at the time. But they showed me a picture of a river moving the cosmos. All the stars, all the planets are in it. They're in this flow. The river's just moving in a certain way and in a certain direction to wherever it's going, which I can't get my head around. But in that flow, its will is what's guiding us. We're in it. We can't control it. We're only just moving through it. As individuals, we can go with the flow or we can try and go against the flow thinking we know better. And I think that's what creates the friction in our own lives. The more we surrender to ourselves and give back the power to our spirit and center it rather than give it all away and focus on things we shouldn't, therefore growing things we shouldn't, because energy follows thought. When thought goes out, it creates vibration, and vibration manifests. So what we give our thoughts to are extremely important, and that's a training in itself, because even with me, I'm still an adjustment from the programming that I got from a child, from the way I was brought up in this world and the way that they teach through the words spelling and spell and all this stuff. Because when you're young, you don't even think about spelling, you don't even add two and two together that it's actually magic they're talking about. It's not until you become more self-aware that you realize your words are actually creating stuff in your life. You're actually empowering things by what you give words to. And the more we train our mind in these areas and start to choose the words carefully, what we do empower, after a while we see the world around us turning a lot better than it did before. And it turns around us internally better than it did before. Sorry, I know
Slowly river flows to the sea, to the sea. I'll be coming home, wait for me. Yeah, you know, the Vedas, I believe, the Hindu texts, they talk about how there is a system of reincarnation where they, um, I can't remember which one of their books talk about it, but they say we are like germs, and then we live the existence of a germ and stuff, and then we become more celled
complex
entities. Yeah, the complexity increases, and then we go to plants, and then from plants we go to insects, and then from insects to animals, and then from animals to humans again. And then after we do humans, we go to the source, and then it starts over again.
Yeah.
So if more times than not, the last reincarnations, I kind of like that more so too than the reincarnation, like we were a human in the last life and the last life and the last life.
Well, sometimes people are stuck on a rut. This is what I notice. Whatever the powers that should not be have done to this realm, they've got them in. And some people are in a loop and they're stuck in a rut, and they just keep coming back and back and back and back. They don't know what the hell is going on, because they've mucked up something there. Nese, they've mucked up something.
Well, if spirit is energy, if we all agree that spirit is energy, it's a force, then I would absolutely believe almost 100%, 99.999998, that the powers that should not be are doing what they can to figure out how to collect that energy, that power, that essence, that spirit, to create more power or generate the system to continue giving them the power.
Yeah,
they can never generate that much power to control anything forever. Brother.
Yeah, they're trying real hard.
And they're nearly at the end of that reign. That chapter is about to finish.
Maybe.
Yeah,
and I appreciate your confidence saying that it is going to be, but the sun is the same in a relative way, but much older. How long has the sun been in existence?
Longer than the moon.
Right. Well, then it's been existing in that manner for its existence. So with that being the case, then that means that these powers that could be or should be or shall be are existing in that same more sense timeline.
Well, I'm probably going to throw a little contradiction in for you, brother, because if you would perceive the world as being held by a negative energy for a period of time, isn't it automatic that the pendulum's got to swing back? It's natural law.
Before you put that contradiction down, can I put a map so we don't make a mess?
We're just here to eventually help find the balance once it gets out the other side.
Oh, yeah. Well, I absolutely agree that things will oscillate. because that's just the way it goes. You
Absolutely.
got that dance between positive, neutral, and negative,
But
and
I look at it this way. You want to look at it in a positive way. Everything we've been through up until now is helping each individual learn. We've learned more about gratitude. We've learned more about not wasting. We've learned more about solitude. We've learned more about the importance of communication. I can go on for a long time looking at all the actual flowers that have come out of the compost.
right. But don't you believe that has been an occurrence with these silly humans their whole existence?
Well, that's a young species for you, brother. And this isn't the first time they've tried to get it right.
Well, I think I think one of the biggest occurrence. Okay, this is the woo. This is me out
Now,
there at Speculation Island. Okay, so
let
I
me listen to
think
your heart, brother.
I think at one point, like billions of years ago, that there was only one species of humanoid on this existence, and then they kept introducing new ones. Just like the many different dogs and how they interbreed or interbred. I believe that this occurred. And so if we want to think of intelligent design and we want to talk about the creator, I wouldn't be surprised if there is, an existence out there where there are just purebred German shepherds running the world.
Actually,
And they've advanced so well, that
it's
they
funny.
are like the dogmen.
As funny as you think that is, Nese, when I was a young girl, I had a dream that I was taken to a place like that. And I remember getting there and looking around going, wow, they're all dogs except for one human. One human walked out and I saw the one human and he just smiled at me and then I woke up. So maybe it's not as funny as you think it is. Well, it is funny, but maybe it's not as crazy as you think it is.
Well, this is where they talk about the dogmen in one theory that these dogs are so intelligent that they're called dogmen because of their intellect. You feel that they are your equal,
Yep.
so like a dog man.
Well, I refer to uh, animals and birds and trees and all that as people, the tree people, the bird people, and when they're in my presence, I treat them with the same respect I'd give a human energy, and I talk to them the same. How are you today? And sounds crazy, but I do hear them talk back, but it's not like in words. It's a different way. Um, and they kind of know me now, so they stay around for a while because they know I'm not going to hurt them because I've done it all my life. Yeah, what was it? What were we talking about? You got. Remember when you rang up and I told you what state I was in?
the best state that I am in, the state of confusion, or some people call it Minnesota. Well, every time that occurrence happens where an individual will be like, well, can't you talk to the animals? Or what is that crow saying? I'll say the last time I went to have a conversation with an animal or a crow, they came back to me and said, who in the fornication under consensual knowledge do you think that you are talking to me? You are part of a species that have destroyed this planet. You continue to take more than you deserve or need, and you continue to pollute this planet. You continue to just take advantage of every situation, and you want to have a conversation with me? And I said, point taken. Sorry. Have a beautiful day, Crow.
Yeah, they tell me about that stuff. It's pretty sad, and I'll say sorry. This is on. Yeah.
And then the
But,
crow says, "You got anything shiny?"
ha!
No, it's
Ah!
more like a caw,
Ah!
caw.
Ah! Carl.
Yeah, mate. What?
Yeah, they sit here. We'll be sitting here in the kitchen, and they'll call out. They'll be in the tree out the back, and they'll go, "Carl," and I go, "You want it outside, mate?" But
Well, you know, one thing that's really interesting, I'll share with you about the crows. Another reason why crows will show up in abundance in your yard is if you are having um, technical advanced terrorism, where they can take a drone and circle it above you a couple thousand feet and project an electromagnetic wave down at you from above, which will give you a sense of stress or uneasiness. And if they do this, those electromagnetic worms or waves will cause the insects of your yard to come to the surface. And then if a crow notices abundance of insects in your yard, they'll say, caw, 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 and get it. And then you get a murder in your backyard.
yeah, and that's the part of nature. Well, we should all be used to life and death. That's part of nature. Bottom line, because you should know that it goes on beyond that.
How many crows makes a murder?
A mob. Depends if they're carrying knives.
Crows have got an amazing vocabulary as well.
Yeah, they can. That's
Oh,
why.
yeah.
Yeah, they animals can talk to us. We just don't know how to talk back to them. That's the problem. And they do look at us like you stupid ain't human. I even say to my cat sometimes, some days I'm off. They're the days that I ate the wrong stuff. I'm off, and my cat will look at me and I'll apologise. I'll go, I'm sorry. I'm having a stupid human day, and I can't understand what you're trying to say to me. And I'll be honest. Some days I do not understand what they're trying to say, and I know I'm being whatever they program me with is open and on that day, and hopefully
Well, this is one of the beautiful things about animals too. And as we were talking about totems or spirit animals, or when people do take those opportunities to reflect on the occurrences where they will have an experience of crossing paths with a certain animal. And some people will tend to have a specific animal that they're very attracted to. And my ancestors, we discuss of how, these animals have teachings that if you observe the animals and how they interact with each other and their environment, there's definitely teachings to be found.
It sure is.
So if you can utilize the reflection of an animal to help you find positivity, by all means, do it. And there's many different modalities out there. There's even like some tarot decks out there. They're the sacred path cards, the medicine. I think they're called the medicine cards.
Yeah, I like the Native American medicine cards, brother.
Oh, yeah, the cards I got are Wisdom of the Australian Animals. That's what the ones I have, because I use, obviously, my own animals that are part of my totem and all that, and the other animals to guide me, which I always have since I was a little girl, so why would I change it?
Well, I mean, and absolutely. And if you got a deck like this, where every day you drew a card and you pick this animal and you read some of its attributes and you reflect on it throughout your day and ponder, how can I utilize this in order for me to find that positivity, get out of the negativity, and even more when those synchronicities occur or coincidence where you cross paths with that animal, that you just make it even more so special.
Yeah, I was going to say that because normally that would happen, but there are periods of time where it doesn't happen, and that's when I'll pull a card because I haven't been out in nature. I've had really magnificent experiences with animals in nature, with high spirituality, and I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful to those
If we
experiences.
if we go back to the whole electromagnetic absolute of it, when you pull a card and that card is the image of an animal, then you focus on that image of the animal within your brain. Your neurotransmitters and receivers will cause more or less an electrical storm to occur, which will produce the frequency of that animal. So I would be more prone to believe that within that causation of that electrical magnetic storm to produce the energy that declares that animal, that animal would recognize that energy and possibly even be drawn to it. And so with that energy burst in your brain, having its residue, because it doesn't dissolve quickly, if that's in your brain, then I would also have to believe that it is causing your oogly googlies to be more focused and aware of this animal, causing even greater of an occurrence when all of a sudden you experience that animal.
Yeah.
Because then you just intensified that electromagnetic storm in your brain, and maybe under certain circumstances, when that burst of electricity happens in your brain, then all of a sudden the dopamine, the serotonin, the pineal gland secretes its giggle juice, and we're just like, oh yeah, baby.
Yeah, you can put it that way. I'm more like, thank you, Creator, thank you, Mother. But yeah, it's one of them euphoric experiences.
Well, it reminds me of these stories I was going to do on this Native American radio show. I was working with them to do like little 15-minute things, and I was going to do like different voices and stuff. And one of them that I came about was the young native that goes off to college, and he comes back to the reservation and he meets the old native, and they're having a conversation. He's talking about college. The native's talking about res life. And then he was all like, so the other day I was out in the woods and I came across this huge mountain lion. And then the young college native is all like, oh, yeah, uncle, you know what happens in your brain? You have this flight or fight stimulation occurring where your palms get all sweaty and you're ready to grip things and your feet get sweaty so you can run faster. And then you start increasing your oxygen intake and you start getting this adrenaline happening and in your brain starts firing. And then the uncle goes, yeah, I just got scared and left.
Yeah.
Simple's always best.
Well, I mean, all on the perspective of the individual, because even within the village, there were those individuals that were like, what is beyond the village? I don't want to, some people are content of staying in the village their whole entire life. But
Yeah.
there's always been those individuals that are like, what is beyond the mountains? What is over the hill? What's around the bend?
But
And they have that.
aren't they the souls, though, brother, that have outgrown that pathway that they've been in through many lifetimes, so their soul needs to grow to find new experience?
Maybe.
See, I was always shown like the mob lives in the forest, right? And every now and then one wants to leave the forest and climb up the mountain to see what he can see, or she, depending on the male or female aspect, right? But most of them still in the forest can't see shit for trees, so they don't know there's a way out or even there's life outside it. But I think that's spiritual evolvement. The more we seek to grow beyond the boundaries of everything we know already, because our mind and spirit gets bored with it, the more we seek new experience so that our spirit can continue to grow, seeking out new experiences, young at first, smarter and older, you know, climbing the mountain. Imagine climbing one face of the mountain. You can't see what's on the other side, so you're still single-sided in your point of view. It's not until you get to the top of that mountain that you realise, wow, look at all these other people climbing the mountain. That one over there is going up a staircase. Wow, he's got to go forward, then he hits a wall, and shit, he has to rise above it. And then he moves forward, and then he hits a wall, and shit, he has to rise above it. And then he hits a wall. This just goes on and on all the way up the staircase to heaven, right?
What about
Someone
the one
else-
that's on the elevator?
Well, yeah, some take easier paths. Some are on the cliff face because they think the devil exists. They're hanging on for grim life, thinking at any minute he's going to grab them and pull them down. Others find that beautiful path up the mountain, which is just full of beautiful butterflies, birds, and rainbows and stuff like that. It's a meandering path. But once they finally get to the top, I believe they realise, wow, we've all been making the same climb. We've just been making it from different points of view according to the environments we came out.
Yeah, but then again, as the allegory about the young kid going off to learn the, the intricacies of what happens. There's some people that are just climbing the mountain to climb the mountain to get to the top and be like, cool, I'm here at the top. Now what?
Yeah, that's the physical mountain. I was talking more metaphorically. It's just the physical kind of explains the metaphoric side, because even once someone does climb the mountain, they start looking for, what's next? Their mind is automatically, absolutely. And they just keep climbing until they find some awareness from it. And that's their pathway up. May not be the same as someone else who wants to know the intricacies of every step and what they're learning as they grow. They're just all right just to keep climbing until they figure it out one day when they get there.
Well, I absolutely agree, and I understand the perspective. But then, as I was saying earlier, we got the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And I don't believe we could be in any one more so than all the others.
Oh, no, because before enlightenment, chopping wood, fetching water. After enlightenment, still chopping wood, fetching water. I think the secret to it is learning detachment, because the thing that binds us to the circles that we're in are our attachments to them, our thought processes, the programming that we've given ourselves or others have introduced to us. But I think the more we understand ourselves, the more awareness we have of how we are working in our own self, the more we see the world starting to shape-shift differently around us. Because if you can imagine, if you start to calm the mind, keep yourself centered where you are, set everything free, because I'm not really into this forgive and let go crap, because you've got to put the two groups together and say, what does it feel like when you set something free to what does it feel like when you let something go? When you set something free, there's no friction in it, but when you let something go, it feels like you've got to push it away. So there are all these differences in the way we phrase our words to the way it manifests around us, and this is the self-awareness journey that we all go on eventually. I don't think it's got the physical ramifications are awareness about your environment, what you're a part of, and the fact that you should be seeking balance there as well. And a lot of spiritual people usually tend to walk more humbler lives. The true healers are the ones that bring ease to someone else's life, not more dis-ease or suffering. They've usually started to reduce the friction that they create in the world, generating more peace. And more spiritual people do this over time, and some of them doing it already all the way through, because they're not in the same environments as us. But I think we get a little lost and distracted because we're bombarded with that constant programming where they want our minds to be for control, but they don't even realize they're freeing us by doing it. I even said, the lockdowns actually didn't work in their favor, because the stupidest thing they did was lock us all up with the internet, because most of us became archaeologists at that point, digging shit up everywhere. And before you know it, you had a mass awakening. And I don't think it went according to plan. So everybody's rushing around still trying to control everything. But ultimately, it's moving far quicker than they are. And whatever they're working against is a flow that's bigger than they can even conceive. And eventually their friction will be the only friction left in the world, because the rest of us will have shifted back into the flow again, because it feels right to do it. We just got to find the support in each other to make sure we're confirming it, I suppose, for each other, for particularly the younger ones that are just waking up now. They're the ones that are caught in those two dualities of that negative and positive, rather than recognizing that they can center their thoughts, center their energy, focus it on things that are beneficial rather than putting any tones to them whatsoever. And that way, the words and the spelling and all that creates beautiful magic rather than ugly magic. And I think young, mate, human beings, we're young. We're not long out of a dark phase, you know, and quite literally, we've just met each other around the world coming out of that dark phase. And quite literally, I think that getting to know each other across the world and then starting to learn from the things we should have learned from before, we're in catch-up mode now. So,
But
I've
you
always,
really prescribe that we're young as a species, humans?
yeah, absolutely.
See,
I
I
would say, let me rephrase that. I would say there are a lot of young souls on the planet right now. Because one of the things I used to be puzzled about, right, and this was, I had a lot of friends who would chain themselves to trees and stuff, saving forests and that. And I said to him, I was bitching about it, and he says, you know, don't worry about the trees, mate. And I said, why is that? He said, because they come back as people. And it just gave me the perspective that all these spirits that are holding different shapes are now in the human form. So they're young as a human being. So some of them are standing still because they've come from trees. They don't know how to move around properly yet. We're trying to push and shove them around because we think they should be doing differently. But ultimately, they can't move beyond the nature they're in yet because they're still young. And I think that's the part where the older souls, the ones that have lived around this circle many, many lifetimes, get that sort of understanding eventually, and they start to find peace from it. Because I think true understanding brings peace, and the minute you feel peace inside you, you settle, and the world just starts automatically settling around you. You don't have to control it; it's just automatic. And I think once we start becoming more aware of the words that we use and how we empower them by using them, the more we start shifting those words to a much more of a graceful way of speaking. And we become, as a collective, the spiritual people, leaders in this area, because people eventually, when they're in darkness and in struggle, generally go towards people in the light because they feel automatically that they can see more than they can. And our job is just to help brighten them up so they can see for themselves and find the same peace, not to take power over them, not to control them, not to create more suffering, but to help ease them out of it. And I think that's our purpose. You know, we're part of the major flow of the cosmos. That's what its purpose is. Because I stretched out into the cosmos a fair few times and I just feel peace out there. The clockwork of the stars is harmony. Even though you could probably point out a galaxy bumping into another and stuff like that, but the whole of the cosmos is peace. There's only a very, very small percentage what we would call chaos. It's just what we decide to connect with and ultimately enhancing ourselves. And I think when we start to uh, believe in ourselves and remember the words I am, what you put after those two words is what you become. These are powerful words. They are spelling, they have vibration, and vibration becomes manifest. It creates a feeling inside. It's like if something really powerful happens around you, your whole body will feel it. Your whole magnetic structure shifts automatically because of that powerful feeling, and then you start magnetizing yourself toward it and toward you, pulling it in cell by cell, dot by dot. And I think that's the part where we're at the moment, where human consciousness collectively is going to get to that realization. We'll start realizing a lot of the thoughts we have in our head aren't just our own. We're starting to hear other people as well, which is why sometimes it's so bloody noisy. A lot of us have been picking it up through our bodies already, through our feelings, because we've been taught to feel everybody else and not ourselves. But the minute we bring our feelings back to our own control and center ourselves, we choose to feel loved all the time. Why wouldn't we? Isn't that what we ultimately want, to feel loved? And we had that power the whole time. They just never said that we could do it. They always told us that we needed to find it elsewhere. We need to find it from something that's not us, beyond us, and yet we're absolutely a part of it. I'm talking probably about a creator here without putting names to it, right?
Well, as
Separation.
I was sharing earlier about, from the birth, and as we grow and find these different modalities of collecting energy or attention, i.e., love or fear, that it still is an energy. And so sometimes as children and continuing into adult, we do the negative for the attention. Just like when we were talking about the anal sphincters in a group of 100, and so assume I'd assume that these entities at all levels would be the same, positive, neutral, and negative, and they would be doing their manipulation within the levels of their capacity, what they're capable of doing, and that would add to our individual challenges, that when we are attempting to listen to the voices within positivity, love, that sometimes the voices of fear, negativity will manipulate and lie. Just as we've met individuals that lie to us in the physical realm, so does occur in the spiritual realm. And this is where we need to be critically honest with ourselves, use our own modalities of divination, so that when we make these choices towards the positivity, they're more likely to have the desired outcome, and that it be minimal with the distraction of negative um, pressure to make the negative choice.
Yeah, look, I'm probably just going to put it in the words of I've always found that what I feed in my mind is what grows in my life, and I've seen plenty of people that believe they've been cursed or someone's been at them with black magic, and I always remind them of the term free will. I said, at the end of the day, there is no power outside yourself other than what you give it. And quite literally, we've been taught to fear, so we give it. And that's where we get caught, we get stuck and hooked. And when you look at what a dark energy is, there's probably a better understanding to what they are than what we've known from the past, because looking at it through young eyes, we don't see the completeness of it and get true understanding for what it is. Like, just for a quick clarification on that, like, if I was to put something under the ground, it would go into a state of decay if it was made up of flesh or leaf matter or something similar. Would you agree?
Carbon based, yeah.
Absolutely. So if we bring enough material from under the ground and put it in the air, right, we would form little bits of decay on the surface of the earth where it shouldn't be. Now, there's also spiritual energy under the ground, which would be perceived to be dark, because it is. There's no light down there. Not so much that we're talking physical, visible light. The other light, photons, all that stuff move through everything, so it's there. But what I'm trying to say is that it's dark in its nature. The further you go into the earth, like lava has an energy, it has a spirit. We put faces in that to understand that spirit, so that we can understand what it would do to us. Now, lava, if we touched it, would burn us and probably kill us. So we put a scary face to it. And it's the same with fire spirits. Like, if anybody's ever seen a fire dancing around when they've lit one, it actually does have a spirit there. And it transforms energy. It's just depending on how you choose to receive what it's doing, or how you choose to view it, to the point of view you get. And this comes down to the darker spirit stuff, right? So let's say, for instance sake, someone hurt you when you were a child and you were unable to stop them. So that person has taken power over you, and part of their energy persists in your energy until you reclaim your power back. So we would see that as an attaching entity or something dark floating around influencing their behavior. But we don't look any further than that to understand it's come from someone else who still probably isn't even thinking about it anymore. But the person it was done to hasn't been able to let it go. And that's where the dark entity comes from, because neither one can let go of the other, because they're attached. And we don't teach about this stuff. We teach people to give their feelings away, allow other people to influence your feelings. In fact, crikey, you've only got to watch the TV. They literally make money off influencing people's feelings through fear and propaganda. But the minute we realise we can take that control back, then the outside stuff doesn't have the influence anymore, because we don't allow it. And I think that's the part of evolution spiritually that we're at. We're starting to realize we actually do have control. The thing that I can control the most is whether I'm good or whether I'm evil. So how do I defeat evil? I deny it battle. Because the minute I go to war with it, I'm becoming more like it every day, and it wins in the end. So I just keep the peace because it has no power over me while I stay in control. It doesn't matter what it does to my physical body because my spirit endures. I don't lose anything. Quite literally, we just move into another life and have it all there when I reawaken. And quite literally, that's how it goes. You can look at it in many other forms. I just don't like certain wordings because it keeps that in play and keeps it manifesting around my life. I've always found the sun being the best teacher, quite literally, never lets you down. Crikey, every morning for the whole of my life so far, it has been there. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be there for the rest of it every morning to greet me. It'll never let me down. And I get my faith from that. It helps me to keep my doubt at bay.
Hey, babe, I hate to tell you, but every morning when you wake up, you're going to be looking at me until the day you die. I have to chuck a joke in there.
We're live. I've got to be careful what I
I know,
say.
yeah. I just found you, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, that's what happens when you're married, man.
And there's one thing that I learned when I was a lot younger, and this was connecting with people from your island, Nese, and that was they had a romantic way of putting things with the Earth Mother. It quite literally opened my eyes in areas I never thought were there, and it connected me to something that, well, I didn't even know really at that point what it was. But once I realised it, I started to tap into it and realised the Earth Mother keeps memory. She knows everything that's ever happened on her, and she has her own energy, her own intelligence. She's connected to us because our bodies are made up from her. And the farther side of it is the air that we breathe. It's also inside us. It's just that we've forgotten there should be a balance. We've pushed the feminine energy so far down that we've created this friction. We created this duality of night and dark. Because what's the inside of the yin and yang? That's the feminine. That's the dark. That's underneath your feet. The yang is the light, which is the atmosphere that surrounds the planet. Father energy. And most of us create friction in our life because we deny one or the other, including self, by the way. This was a hard lesson for me. Still working the knots out of it too. So it's one of those areas where, again, self-awareness and not being hard on self. Another term I always hear people using is, I've been through the closet so many times, when's it going to be clean? I said, I don't know. Why didn't you just clean it once and know it was clean? You're only putting things in there now to find because you think there's more to find. But, what you agreeing with what you said before about people, if you mentally give it power, are you attracting it to you? Of course you are. Animals and those kinds of thinking absolutely work that way. It's just you can look at it from a different perspective, though, and look at the animals and say, well, look, I'm going to understand how that animal moves in the world, get to know its nature a little bit, because there's people out there that probably behave similar because they're from that animal, and it will help me to recognise them. Because when was the last time people watched a good documentary or listened to one for that fact, where they just understood the nature of the animal kingdom, what they do? I remember watching the wolves in Yellowstone National Park and what happened when they introduced them. It brought back balance for the most part. And they were so hell-bent on killing them all in the first place.
In our culture, we take it literally. And for an example, an emu. Now, an emu, the female lays the eggs and then the male comes and sits on them for a very long time and doesn't eat or nothing. And when they're hatched, he looks after them and the mum is off and away. She only comes back every now and again and she might bring food or something like that and make sure everything's all right. So in society, in our community, when there's a woman that has children and the husband's saying, my wife is never home, she's always going out and I'm stuck with the kids, we just go, oh yeah, because you married an emu woman. Mm-hmm. And where's the argument there? Because he should have known she was an emu woman before he married her.
Yeah, but that's where the problem is in society. There's certain elements of our younger years through the last 500-600 years plus where they've literally used certain belief systems to cut and cull other belief systems, which were necessary for us to keep balance. You've only got to look at what happened in Europe through the Inquisitions, crikey. How many women did they kill for just being a storyteller, a herbalist, or a midwife? Called them a witch. That's where we lost her story, brother.
Well, when in the Northern Hemisphere we are appreciating Mother Earth, then in the Southern Hemisphere it is Father Earth.
Is that what it's like over there? Yeah, no, that's all right. Because over here, from where my people are from too, it's Mother Earth is under your feet.
Well, and then it goes back to the whole, having the full spectrum of things. The dualism, the opposite, the going back and forth, and within the equator, the equalness, and then when you look at the earth in the sense of the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, that is where all the balance is found. Where the average, where all of the sunlight is during those two perspectives. And interesting enough, if you look at the migratory factor of birds, because of the heavy metals that are in their oogly googlies, they see a difference between north and south or south and north, where one is red and one is blue. And they know that if they stay within the realm of the purple, then they'll survive. And that's why they migrate north and south to remain within the purples for survival. And again, that great dance of finding balance, the average center.
Yeah, absolutely. The balance is the key, and learning detachment. Because even some of the people I've met spiritually have still got themselves attached to other moments in other lives, and they're not completely here because of it. So they're not supporting their physical existence here properly because they're scattered through time, and their energy's supporting more than one time frame.
Yep, and there's the allegory again of the earth, and if you plot the pattern or the cycle of the sun going across the earth, it is like a wave, going back and forth over a center line. And if you turn that line 90 degrees, the historical transformation of that image is the snake going up the pole or the snake going up the tree. That oscillation back and forth from one extreme to the other and trying to, hang on to the bar, hang on to the timeline as we continue forward in the now or this precious moment. And how do we continue to find the balance? I say minimally create a giggle.
Yeah. Start to live back in the moment you're in and start to enjoy it as best you can with what you have. And that's not always easy for some. And the ones that do in those situations are doing better than most of the ones that aren't in those situations.
Well, that's where I do appreciate the individuals that open themselves for conversations, to assist other people reflect on the experience, to find that positivity within love without fear. The strength is right there within you.
Yeah, just be okay with yourself. Realize you're right where you're meant to be, otherwise you'd be somewhere else. Where you end up in the future is choice.
And when in doubt, call for patience, call for grace, call to understand this place, and the answer will come.
And don't forget to tell the mother you love her.
Mm-hmm.
Tell your mother, tell your mother, tell your mother. Tell your mother.
You told your mother yet?
I suppose we shouldn't forget the father either.
The real daddies.
Yeah, next time the wind's blowing, that's the father's energy wrapping around you.
Chris Rock, Bigger and Blacker, HBO special, brilliant, brilliant comedy about the difference between men and women and that polarity that we find ourselves in. But that's, you know, where I believe there's a misunderstanding in this world of wokeness, and every movement has its extremist, and so you don't have to, but looking at the full spectrum of those individuals that proclaim the label of woke, you have your extremists and you have those that are just average and fine. But when we look at this dualism of the masculine and the feminine, that is found within each entity, that energy. And it is our responsibility to find the balance within ourselves and that masculinity and femininity. And it's not always easy, especially if you find yourself in a social conditioning experiences of overabundant masculinity, especially if you are female at birth, I guess. And the same is rightly so, that if you were born male and you are experiencing overabundance of estrogen or femininity, then it is a little more difficult to find that balance within yourself. Thus, the importance of the parental units to be involved with the upbringing of our genetic property.
Parental units. That reminds me of a TV show that where there were robots with the parental units.
Right? Again, back to that movie Logan's Run, where people said that they could have a baby and then they would go to the baby generating company and they would take the genetics of the mother and the father, and if you qualified, they'd create you a baby.
Yeah, that's hectic, isn't
What is that, about 2025?
it? It looks like that plane got put on hold.
And what happened at the end of the movie? Didn't they realise that something wasn't right and they escaped and found out there was a whole world?
Sorry.
They were living within the dome structure, Buckminster Fuller, and then the runners got out, and apparently outside was livable again.
Right.
And they, I think it was an allegory that they were right outside Washington disease.
Oh, yeah.
Because if I remember, they went into like these old buildings that were like, in Washington, all of the different structures they have there.
Using television as a good analogy of consciousness and the way it's mapping itself, I would say that there's a fairly large portion of every movie I've ever watched where the good guys have always won.
Oh, give them a little belief and hope.
No, but I think that's actually a way of seeing what we're pulling in at the same time. And we might get some pretty dark spots, but I think in the end we've already planted, seeded, and given energy to the good guys winning.
There's a little black spot on the sun today.
Whether they put it up as a deception or not, I think they don't have the capacity to see as far as what we think because they live in the dark. You can't see shit in the dark, mate.
Well, now with this new movement of where the vigilante is the hero,
Yeah.
Yeah,
where it's like you can go to the extreme as long as the end justifies the means.
I probably try not to get caught up too much on the pathway, but it's more the total collective, the good guy wins in the end kind of thought. Because really, when I've looked at most movies, there's only probably been 2 movies I've ever watched where the good guys didn't win. But all the rest, we programmed it, and literally, if the program is working on all other levels, why isn't it working on that one as well against them without them even knowing? It's like locking people down. They should never have done that. That was a stupid move, which is why they're hesitant to do it again, because people just communicate far more than they expected them to. They thought it would isolate us. In fact, it did the opposite. But people living in the dark, playing in the shadows, well, can't see shit for trees.
because the shit down. No.
We just say they're not
see
the
the tree
bright,
from the
they're not the
forest.
brightest bunch, or not the sharpest tool in the tool shed.
Don't fear people. It's going to be all right.
Well, going
Come out in the forest, they would die within 2 days because they've got absolutely no idea how to survive without anyone else. It shows how powerless they really are.
convenience, and you cannot stop progress. But I just lost my train of thought. I wanted to bring up something that we were just discussing about with the indigenous people. Here in America, that when it was so-called discovered, or when the colonists started coming here to America, and we had a situation here where in North America they had an abundance of trees, forest. And yes, within the forest, there were areas that were cleared. And in these clearings were where there were cities. But not only were there cities within these clearings, but usually when major rivers would come together, that was a 90% chance that there was a huge trading facility there within the natives. But also in the woods, if you remember, like in Star Wars, when they showed the Ewoks and living in the trees, this is part of my ancestry, where we had these huge longhouses that were built in areas where it was cleared naturally, but that was also in the areas of where we would have our gardens, because we had the full spectrum, where people lived more into the woods and people lived more in the cities, and they would bring back and forth, to the major cities, because when they would go to the major cities, that's where, the rituals, the ceremonies would be held. That's where you would go to meet new potential, um, introducing a better, what would you call it, strengthening the species with new blood as they
Yeah.
live in smaller communities. But it was more or less like it is today. It's just that their ideology of what to utilize to construct a huge city isn't like the way of today, where it's like, oh, we need to put up concrete, we need to put up steel, we need to create these superstructures in these cities to show our advancement, because it was literally too hard to create these huge monumental buildings without what they used for slave labor.
Yeah.
That's one thing that's rarely ever talked about, Washington disease, of how much slave labor it took to make a lot of those really old buildings. And I would say in the world of blue collar workers, they're still pretty close to slavery or indentured servitude.
Yeah, yeah, that's where we come to society and what we're living under and how we're living, because we don't live right. I've said it for a long time. People are starting to realise that we're not living right.
Well, that
Um,
is again the challenge of finding the attitude of the system that we are in is the system that we are in, and finding that positive attitude while going through this system and easily able to point out the different things that are broken with the system, and that is the challenge, most definitely, because is the system so solidified that we're not able to change the system? Is the system manipulated by those that created the system to give us the belief of one spectrum or the other? Or are we really caught in the matrix, which is not so bad because then it justifies my eating of bison burgers periodically?
Mate, I think most of the time when we deal with a problem, we have a choice, right? We can go one of two ways toward it. One which can point out the problem and create friction, or the other is to point out a solution to a problem that shouldn't already be there. And the solutions are what's missing, because every time I look into the public system or I meet managers or people of influence in it, I always remind them that it's a work in progress. It hasn't been around very long, and the best way to make it better is to submit paperwork to show solutions. Because the people at the other side of it have got absolutely no idea what they're doing. They do not work in the areas that you're trying to educate them in, and nor do they want to know about it. So the only thing we can do is show them how it can be better and benefit everybody by doing it. And finding the best solutions isn't always easy, because it can take sometimes a collective mind rather than a single mind.
Well, that has been one of the challenges with socialism and communism, because on paper they do work, but once you put the human factor into it, then they fail, where they become a fascist state or a dictatorship.
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree, because there's got to be still some form of leadership role where someone eventually listens to all the argument and then makes a decision. Because I think, when you put a problem up and you ask the collective for a solution, you're going to get multiple points of view looking at it. You're going to come up with lots of different answers, and you have to find the best one to move forward, one that most people agree on.
One thing that I really do enjoy, and I learned this from Horst Rechelbacher, the creator of Aveda hair products and cosmetology realm. He said, replace the word problem with the word challenge.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's like the word sickness, replace it with the word healing. I am
Yeah.
healing.
And
Yeah,
that whole thing of, where we talk about words and the construct of words and how we get confined within our belief of what that word is, when these words have those negative connotations to them,
they create.
then yeah, they create an energy, they create a field that will disrupt your normalcy. So then, when you can use words with a positive connotation, then that would assist you in getting rid of the dis-ease or the negativity. So it's that self-reflection again, back to physically, what am I putting into the body, and am I getting out the negativity? Mentally, the same thing. What are we having as far as conversations? Are we reflecting consistently on the negativity, or are we trying to find those solutions to the challenges emotionally? Are we getting caught up in our emotions to where we're not recognizing the emotion and going through the emotion? Or are we letting the emotion drive the vehicle? And then spiritually, of course, is, I believe, one of the biggest challenges that we experience because of the realm of not knowing if it is real or if it is fake, and experiencing it to each individual's perspective to find their own embracing of their essence that is the power, the source, the spirit, the fuel, many different names for that spirit. So how do we find that balance? You know, each of us have our own modalities, but if you want all the answers, just get a hold of Carl.
No, not really, brother.
And go to his website.
And for $19.99, I'll be your many sins man.
Neutral, brother, has no pushing or pulling in it.
Absolutely. And if we really wanted to be critical, I mean, for us to really have the most beneficial impact of this existence, we would have to go sit in the right on top of the grate that's right over the sewer and not move again, because even in our decomposition, we create toxicity because of what we've gone through within this system.
Oh, a lot of us have got to work the devil out of that, brother. For me, it's a work in progress, as I probably mentioned before. It's something that if you continue to walk with yourself, understand self, and settle self, it's a process that takes time and practice, because you're reprogramming yourself the way you feel you should be rather than the way you shouldn't. And when it comes down to what you do on the earth, it's something that's then going to be driven by your spirit. Your spirit's going to move you to do things because it's something your conscience feels is the right thing to do. And whatever level that is where you're at. See, my animal totem's an eagle, so I spend a lot of time up in the air looking at the detail and how things go on the ground. But I don't come down on the ground very much to do much down here. But there are other people down on the ground we call grassroots people. They're the people in perfect positions and always are motivated and usually active, doing the grassroots on the ground work, being moved by the people up in the sky that are giving them an idea of where they should or shouldn't go next, because they can see more. But this is how we don't utilize those natures anymore to benefit the whole. And I think bit by bit they're starting to slide back in, unconsciously at first, but consciously over time, because some spiritual people are here just to find their center, become more enlightened and find their peace. Others are here to make and support change in a way that is beneficial to the earth, to save her in a way. And some are here just to help her with whatever she's planning, because not many people have sat with the Earth Mother and probably asked her what's going on. We just think we know because we see little aspects and small points of it, me included, by the way. Sometimes I think, oh, yeah, I got it. And then, a year or two will go by and they'll show me a better point of view of it. I go, oh, yeah. And I'll just laugh because I realized that what they were showing me now gave me more settled energy and provided more peace because it gave me a greater understanding. And sometimes we go on a journey to be able to get our head around some of the questions that we ask about why this is the way it is and why that is the way it is. We have to go and engage in it so we get to understand it, because we've questioned it so much, rather than just realizing it's just a phase in time and it'll eventually pass like everything else does. We just become more aware of how to guide that. And remember, spiritual people like yourself, brother, sometimes you'll have a single thought, you may even put it to word, and then somewhere in the world it'll manifest something because someone's heard it and put it to ground.
Well, my spirit animal is a single cell amoeba, to be more specific. the little filly eye that helps it move within its construct. And so I get to see things in a smaller experience.
I find a lot of people too get, like when I mentioned we've come out of a dark phase, we've been through a lot of tough lives, and some of us have suffered horrifically through them, and some of that suffering has still got the injustice associated to it, so we haven't been able to let it go. And we still are in a position of pain and suffering in this life because of it without even knowing why, because we don't educate or bring understanding to these points anymore. And we probably got every justification to be in the position we're in. Like I remember one lady, she was suffering from cancer, but without going into her life too much because of the privacy of it, I can say that when I looked into it, I realised that she was suffering deliberately. Someone had hurt her and a family, and she was going to suffer to the bitter end to show that person that had hurt them that it really hurt, even though the person had died already. But there was no way to shift her suffering because she was determined to punish that person with. And this is some of the stuff that we do without even knowing we're conscious of it until someone points it out. And then we get back the choice. Do we continue it or do we set it free? And again, the setting free part to me is the right way, because the minute you set something free, it has its right to exist, but it's no longer influencing me in a way that causes suffering. And I tend to bring the words peace and suffering into it rather than other words, because it feels more natural to me, more connected.
Agree.
But brother, I'm going to have to love and leave you guys to chat, because I'm going to go and have a shower and stuff. It's been great chatting with you, brother.
How long have we been squawking?
It's been 2 hours and 13 minutes and 37 seconds.
And it's been a good conversation.
We should go for, let's go for 2 hours and 22 minutes. How many minutes we got left? Like 5?
Well, I'm going to leave you two to finish it off. I will catch up with you later, and love to your brother, and all the best, and I'll chat with you soon.
Oh, absolutely, Carl. It's always an absolute delight in my darkness to be able to share these precious moments in conversation with you.
I can tell you likewise, brother. The gratitude is immense. And thank you for anybody that might be listening at the moment for tuning in. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Carl.
That was Carl.
Carl. Hey, so there you go. I hope you got something out of that conversation, everybody.
You got your timer set for 2 minutes or 2 hours and 22 minutes?
No, we're up to 2 and 14 at the
2 and 14?
Yeah, I haven't got it set, but I'm just watching it.
I'm just thinking it'd be a really good, I mean, if we're going to get into the number of it all.
The numbers, yeah.
What time is it down under?
Here it is 10:15 p.m. of the evening of Saturday.
Saturday the 25th, right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, and today's, well, no, it's Sunday the 25th.
Yeah, we're the 24th because we're actually in the same day for a little while. It's like the sun meeting the moon just for a little while.
Oh, well, I'm talking about midnight, the international date timeline.
Yeah, which is whatever. Sun goes up and the sun goes down. That's
we're at 7:16 a.m.
Wow.
Oh, so that means the sun just came up, if I recall. Let's see if my phone will do that. What time was sunrise?
Sunrise tomorrow will be at 7:17 a.m.
7:17 tomorrow. So 7:16 right now here in the Central Time Zone of North America. I'm catching the morning sun with all of you. Morning has broken. Good morning, Luna.
Good evening, Nese. Oh, look, we got Polly. Actually, I should. We haven't had much because it's been in the night time here in early morning. G'day, Polly. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the chat room. And g'day, Joe was with us. Welcome to the day. Hope it's a sunshiny day for you in your part of the world. And I hope when I wake up in the morning, it's a sunshiny day because it's been raining here for a while.
And we were talking about gathering possibly at Discord later today.
Yes, that's right. Later on in your evening, which will be my morning, after I have a sleep, hopefully.
Right.
We're supposed to be gathering in Discord, yes, and having a yarn about something.
Well,
And
I
then,
thought we were just gonna just catch up and say hi
yeah, we can do that.
minimally.
That is a yarn about something.
It's been a while. We tend to find plenty to talk about.
Yes,
Just
indeed.
give me something to talk about.
So we're at 217. Why did you want it to end on that particular number?
222?
Yeah.
Because it's 2022. And if you took out the zero, it would be 222. But then if you take the zero and look at the zero as the colon, it would be 222.
What happens if I miss it and we're over?
Well,
Do I
then we're
countdown
going to
to
be taking the Hell Express.
No, don't say that. All right, we're coming up with 218 now. People are going to say, we're just to do the countdown so we can say goodbye, Yama. Yalu, goodbye, Yalu, see you later. Hope you've enjoyed the conversation. I should
So,
have renamed it Kitchen Chronicles because it's a similar thing, but it was nice to have Carl. Very rare that we get Carl.
yeah, and this kind of came out of spur of the moment because I fell asleep late last night and woke up super early this morning and reached out to Luna and said, "Hey, let's squawk, let's talk, let's yarn for a little."
And I like spur of the moment things because it reminds me that life is spontaneous and you're supposed to enjoy it.
And so I'm so grateful to have you got a friend in me.
Oh,
You've got a friend indeed. Thank
yes,
you, Toot.
that's all right.
Miigwech,
Oh,
Toot.
we're on 219. We've got 2 minutes left. 19, 20, 23 minutes.
Okay. And today is the new moon. So utilize the opportunity as a marker on your cycle to possibly find positivity one way or another. An example would be like, okay, for this next moon cycle, I'm going to stop eating sugar or stop eating meat or maybe stop smoking or something that's positive that helps you find that attitude through this next phase, this next cycle, because you want to create your own cycle or do you want to follow the cycles of the psychos? Choice is yours.
The cycles of the psychos, I like that one. Yeah. To find, it's easy to find positive things. Doing positive things, you just got to get up and start doing it and it'll flow. It'll flow. We've got 2
And
minutes.
2 more minutes. Oh, 2 more minutes until 222. How
Yes,
unusual. There's only two of us here.
yes.
Oh, my phone just said 721. So we got 60 seconds, Luna. Take it away. You got 30 seconds. What do you got to say?
Love to you on this day. I hope you have a fantastic day. It's full of joy and love, sharing with the universe around you. Thank you, Nese, for making this surprise yarn. And all right, just tell me when, because mine still says 2:20, 2:21. All right, I've got two different times here. We're not
Okay.
that yet.
Well, the
Just like,
illusion is time, and time is an illusion. So let's not get caught up in the now. Let's get caught up in these precious moments with universe. And thank you so much, Chimigwich, Apegish, Minobimad Ziwe Wiyan, Toodles, Yalu.
yeah.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Yellow. Bye.